Navy's Indo-Pak War 1971. That was the glorious time for the Indian Navy to prove itself. With Jagjeevan Ram, the oil tanks on one side of the country, Mysore, the flagship, were turned away.
In the evening of 3rd December 1971, Pakistan launched an unprecedented and unprovoked attack on the airfields of India.
Pakistan launched a full-scale war against us. The Pakistan Air Force suddenly struck at our airfields in Amritsar, Pathankot, Srinagar, Avantipur, Uttarlai, Jodhpur, Ambala and Agra. भारत केवल भूमि, पहाड़ और नदी नहीं, भारत केवल 6 लाख गांव व नगर नहीं, भारत उसकी 55 करोड़ संतान ही नहीं, भारत एक भावना है. Today, the war in Bangladesh has become a war on India.
In keeping with the highest traditions of our glorious motherland, our armed forces responded to the nation's call with valor, commitment, and courage.
And the missile boats were on their way to Karachi, hugging the coast and on the east the aircraft and the elites of the war. Were at sea, ready to do what they wanted to do, and the ships at sea were all ready to take on their task, and with their weapons ready to go, the guns going blazing, and their engines running at full lick. The men were all charged in the 1971 war. It was an occasion and a time for India to remember. The missile boats had gone to Karachi, and Nirigat I.J. Sharma fired the first missile of the 25th Missile Vessel Squadron, and it went straight, and that missile went straight into Khyber. It exploded. That was the first kill. 200 hours, that is what they did, approaching Operation Trident. So we should repeat that and understand what happened in Operation Trident. They crept up slowly somewhere along the Saurashtra coast after having been towed to Porbandar. And there was the target, Pakistan. As they approached Karachi, and the radar Rangoon showed them the first target, and bang went Khyber, followed by Kabina, who charged off his 2 missiles and got Venus Challenger. And then came Veer, and Veer got Muhafiz. There was, of course, 1 missile fired, and there you are, Muhafiz going down. 1 missile was fired to the coast, but Captain Gopal Rao saw it go down on the beach. And then there was a retreat. Kaltan carried on going towards Karachi, but the missile boats which had hit, and Veer, the last one, turning back to go back to their rendezvous. In the distance, giving those famous words, Operation Trident successful. Good, keep hitting. Of Admiral Krishnan. Operation Python on the 8th. Again, Vinash with Trishul Talwar was on its way to Karachi. It hit first the Kemari tanks, which the fires had just been put off, and then hit Dhaka. And then it also hit Harmattan. So there is what Captain Nair on Trishul said. This is the best Diwali we have seen. That was the style with which the aircraft carrier also was acting. Salute to the Navy, Times of India reported. Karachi shelled the port again. All shipping is now under the Navy. Indian Navy, said Ram. General Niazi had no option but to capitulate. And there you are, looking at the surrender, reading the word General Arora, behind him Admiral Krishnan Diwan, accepted the surrender which was supervised by General Jacob. The names of the missile boat captains: Mahavir Chakra, Commander Babru Yadav, Veer Chakras,
class of missile vessels in 1987.
Then the fight goes on to the east in more detail. Vikrant, the Queen in the east, the Seahawks in the east, the weapons of the Elysee aircraft. And there you are in Elysee taking off. And the Brahmaputra with Captain Avati and Commander Ramdas. They struck havoc into the eastern wing of Pakistan. Total havoc they could do. Ships on fire, a complete blockade, and the oil tanks again. And unfortunately, third, Ghazi went down. She thought she was in Visakhapatnam, but actually it was coming from Andamans. Unfortunately, INS Kukri went down, 176 sailors and 8 officers. There are the survivors. Who did it? PNS Hangur, Admiral Tasneem. The survivors of Kukri. General Yasi walking for the surrender. And, of course, the two chiefs. Jagjeevan Ram, Defence Minister, went down to Bombay, a captured ship. Mrs. Gandhi, the hero, the heroine, the soldiers who got injured. Mukti Bahani, the other heroes. President received the third. D.B. Dhar, ambassador in Russia, was called back. Mrs. Gandhi sent him to meet Field Marshal Manekshaw, and they said, Lieutenant General Kandit, in tentative headquarters just before the war, and said, please go easy on West Pakistan. Mrs. Gandhi was under pressure from Russia and from United States of America. Very important point that Dhar is telling Field Marshal Manekshaw, which he told me, there were constraints on me, the aircraft on taking off from Vikrant, and Captain Gopal Rao saw Veer's missile hit the beach, because that is what happened on 4th. Air Force got Kamari, not the Navy. And this is the Mukti Bahani heroes. Master Chief Petty Officer Chiman Singh in the center. Captain Kapil on the left, Veer Chakra, Mahavir Chakra Chiman Singh, and Captain Samant, Operation X, Mukti Bahani, which was actually the navigators for the Army and for the Air Force and for the Indian Navy. The Mukti Bahani won the Audito. And now the two happy admirals, and Admiral Krishnan showing the President what was on the Ghazi, Admiral Gandhi with Mrs. Gandhi, and this lovely picture on a Navy day as the missiles were being unloaded. Officers like Lieutenant Commander J.K. Roy Chaudhary, they were the officers. Mahavir Chakra on Palash, he went to Khulna. Glory time for the aviators also. Mrs. Gandhi went and addressed, and there is the surrender photo. This is a historic photograph of the Simla Agreement. India has no option as per Geneva Convention but to return the soldiers. Mrs. Gandhi was under pressure that Russia and America both said you cannot take parts of Pakistan. Of course, we come to the surrender. Once again, the surrender and the Simla Agreement are joined together. Simla Agreement we had to give up. How long? According to Geneva and the chiefs understood. She congratulated the chiefs. But the story continues because the Simla Agreement is controversial. We must understand. Karaj, who went to Karachi, Enterprise came, the divers of the Indian Navy. But this book by Chandragupta Das Gupta, Chandrasekhar Das Gupta, needs some statement. Government does not release war records. So this book is very good for political purposes, for what the IFS done. But I can quote Rudyard Kipling in The Charge of the Light Brigade. In times of war and not before, God and the soldier we adore. But in times of peace and all things right, God is forgotten and the soldier cited. It is about our foreign service and about the political rigmaroles, not the war, except a chapter on military plans bashing. And of course, Field Marshal Manekshaw, Sam Bahadur warned Mrs. Gandhi in April, monsoon was not on for war. But Das Gupta knows politicians use a military statement for their own purposes. History of India is available in missions abroad and in death to serve. So Das Gupta, just like Ambassador Raghavan for Pakistan, has written the best book on Bangladesh, but not on the war. It is a book worth reading. This is a video done on iPhone. Apologies for something. But two things you must know. The treaty offered to the Soviet Union, a similar one, Rasgotra writes in his book, was offered to the United States by Swaran Singh and Ambassador Jama. Another thing, Russia sailed the 10th Battle Fleet, Admiral Vladimir Krogov. That is what saved us from the enterprise. Books worth reading, also 25th Missile Board Squadron book. And thanks to Aviation Defence Universe that we have this, but come to my museum. Welcome to New Delhi's only maritime museum. The seas are important, बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण है. बच्चे उनके पिताजी के साथ, स्कूल टीचर के साथ आइए C443 डिफेंस कॉलोनी बेसमेंट मैरिटाइम म्यूजियम अपने देश की इतिहास जो हमारे समुद्र से हुई है, लड़ाई से हुई है, आपको पता चलेगा. Let's start with the decompression chamber the diver goes into and move on to INS Vikramaditya, the MiG-29K powerful aircraft, and the fleet review ships that took part, and the history of the Indian Navy. And then we come along to INS Delhi, the first Type 15 ship. Move on to the submarines and the torpedoes of the Indian Navy, and the history of the Indian Navy on a chart, and our important Coast Guard ships, that the second line of defense. And then we went on to a missile craft made in India, Atmanirbhar. That is what it is all about. The role of the Navy over the sea, under the sea, and above the sea. Then we move on to what is the various instruments used in the Indian Navy. And then we move on to Shannu Varana. Shannu Varana, the motto of the Indian Navy. From there we move on to the wheelhouse, the equipment of the Navy, the movie that we used to use in olden days, and come to the chart table and move from Commander Ignani, diving doctor, and then move into the corner, the 1971 war and the Battle of Britain in the medieval times.
Hi, I compliment you for the Naval Museum that you have made because it reflects the 71 war that we all wanted to know so much about. Thank you.
The final words, we should know that this war was historic. When I presented the book to Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, he said, "Have you written what it did to India's morale? Have you written what it did to India's economy? Have you written what actually India achieved?" The fruits of it we are seeing today. Maritime power has to increase. So this is a tribute to those who took part in the 1971, a tribute to our leadership, and a tribute to the wonderful people of India who supported the three services. Jai Hind!